just happen to be very, very lucky to be here at a time when and learn from an amazing group of students and amazing parents. So I appreciate it, but I think right place, right time. So thank you, Fernando. I wanted to, when Fernando said, we're having this conference and we'd like you to come and speak, I got really, really excited because there's been some things that I've kind of been sitting with and thinking about, and so it gave me an opportunity to put some thoughts together that I would love to share with you briefly. And I did write up, I'm gonna try to not refer too much to my notes, but to actually just speak contemporaneously. I wanted, though, to start with this idea of the golden rule, of putting yourself in someone else's shoes, or of imagining how you could treat someone else the way you wish to be treated. I think we've all heard these bits of advice maybe since we were very, very young. But in this space, with student leaders and leaders who are leading the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think we know that there is something that doesn't hit us quite right about those statements in the modern era. And I'd like to kind of explore that because I have some hypotheses. Why is that problematic? Well, there's a certain value in thinking about walking a day in the life of someone else. To put yourself in someone else's shoes, to imagine what would I do if I were in that situation? What would I bring to the table? How would I feel? But you can hear through all of that statement that the I takes center. So when we put ourselves in someone else's shoes, we center ourself. And that might have worked, but there's something about it that isn't quite enough anymore. And I've been thinking about, why is that rule such a universal concept? Because it exists in all cultures, in all religions, this idea of how can we put ourselves in someone else's shoes, and the value of being able to do that, and the value of treating each other the way that you would like to be treated. And here's my hypothesis. I think that it made sense in smaller, more homogeneous, more localized groups. So I think we can imagine that if our cultural backgrounds are all very, very similar, and we eat the same things for breakfast, and we go about our days the same way, and we have the same values, that I can put myself in my neighbor's shoes because that's really the only thing that's different. Their circumstance might be different, but so much of our lives are the same, and our understandings are the same, right? If you think about, let's take it way, way back to cave people, and we think about, I'm gonna stereotype cave people for a second, so I hope I don't offend anybody with long cave people ancestors. If you think about Ugg and Torg, right, way back in the day, they had the same fear of saber-toothed tigers. They maybe lived in the same cave and had the same rock for a pillow. And so when Ugg said to Torg, this happened to me today, Torg could say, okay, I can understand how I might feel if I were in that situation. But we no longer live in those types of communities where we all have exactly the same background, and we think the same way, and we have the same culture and the same religious beliefs. So that's part of my hypothesis. The second part of my hypothesis is that we are fundamentally and biologically wired to take in new information and to very quickly sort through it and slot it into pieces of our brain that already exist. So if you think about the Tetris puzzle and how quickly you take that Tetris puzzle and you fit it in, from a very young age, anybody who's been to school has been taught you're learning something new. You have to take that and you have to compare it to what you already know. You have to create the Venn diagram. You have to figure out, does it fit here or does it fit here? You quickly take that information, you're asking questions, so as someone's talking, you're saying, oh, well, what about this and what about that? All of that really is judging. We're taking this information in, we're judging it, we're assessing it, and we're putting it where it belongs. And we're biologically wired to do that. Our brains, our perfectly imperfect brains, are designed to take information and to quickly assimilate it, to quickly take it in and make it a part of who we are. So if we're biologically wired and we have this sort of history of kind of this belief about how we should interact with other people, how do we break through? Because we have to stop if we really want to end hate, right? As that video is telling us. We need to stop centering ourselves in the dialogue and in the discussion. And that can be really hard to do if we're biologically wired to do that. And if somehow along the way, culturally, we've gotten the message that that's what we should be doing, that we should be thinking, well, what would I do in that situation? And I would present to you that the main way we need to think about doing that, we need to slow ourselves down, and in some ways, we need to dumb ourselves down. We have these big, beautiful brains, We need to take that Tetris block as it's falling and think about it as the information that we get from all of these people who are around us, this diversity that we are blessed to live in this time period, in this particular time frame. There are very few people in the history of humanity who have had the opportunity to learn from and live with people of such various different backgrounds and ideologies and religions and beliefs, right? It's a blessing to be in this situation. We have to stop our brains, slow down that Tetris block, stop questioning, stop thinking about questions I could ask. When we talk about that active listening, we're always taught, be thinking about what you could ask, listen, make eye contact, think how this applies to you. We have to stop all that for a second. We need to just listen and watch what we're being told about someone else's experience, and we need to believe them. We need to trust in their common humanity, that they're sharing what their life is like in their shoes. And I don't need to put myself in your shoes, because I can just listen and believe and have the humility to understand that your truth is much more valuable than any supposition I can make about what I would do if I were living your truth. And I challenge you, I'm challenging myself. This is kind of like a work in progress as I think about how do you actually do that, because in practice, it's so hard to turn off that brain. So I challenge you to try to do that, to take a moment and to be very intentional about how do you listen to someone else's experience in a way that isn't kind of constantly assessing it against your own, and just sit in a place of belief when someone tells you about their life. Thank you. Thanks for that.